Good morning. It is Friday at 11, so it's time for art journaling. If you don't normally join me, I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm Angharad, and I own Craftiness, which is in Chatsworth, which is a neighborhood near Los Angeles. And it's a retail shop and studio space. And you can find more about it on Craftiness online. And if you want to shop the inventory, if you're not local or if you want to do curbside pickup, which at the moment I wouldn't blame you, then you want to check out craftinessonlineshop.com. And you can shop all the things I have for sale there. So, but this is Friday, my Friday art journaling demo. This is where I take some time and I demonstrate the kind of art journaling I do, which is a lot like that back here. This is my one of my bigger art pieces where I just make a lot of texture and color combinations, and I just play until I feel like I've accomplished something. Really what I'm going for is that moment with my brain where I trigger those endorphins that being creative trigger, and I hit the zone. And it doesn't have to, I don't have to be there very long, but it can really help sometimes smooth out my day or help me clarify thoughts or just put me in a better mood. So I encourage everyone to do it in whatever way you want. For me, it's about paint. So let's get started with that. I need to get a new clamp. This one's starting to disintegrate. All right, so I'm back up to working in my Dina Wakely, my large Dina Wakely journal today. And again, if you haven't been around, or if you have and you haven't done this in a while, I'm just gonna do a quick flip through. These are the pages I've created over the last year and a half. I started this journal at the very beginning of lockdown when I first started doing lives. And so it's kind of a neat way to look at the progression. I use a lot of acrylics. That's why these are a little sticky. Acrylic likes to stick to itself. So and I don't usually take the time to seal it. There are ways I could seal it that would stop that from happening. But again, this is just for me. I don't do this for anybody else's benefit. This is just for me to play and experience like fun moments. Like, I don't know if you can see down here, but I love that. What's happened right here in this piece. And right here, we have these color contrasts, and and I like this one. Give you a wider view of it. Hi Lois. Some of them are thematic in terms of color, and some of them aren't. Sometimes this journal has watercolor paper, burlap, and canvas in it, and so sometimes I skip the canvas like this. If you don't prime this, then it does, let's see, where's the piece? It does this, and I love texture, but I don't love that. And so after that, I realized I had to go ahead and pre-prime, and it shrinks. If you pre-prime, what you do is you prime on both sides and you let it dry, and it shrinks evenly that way. And so if I have a blank space like this, it's usually because I have something that I want to pre-prime and haven't taken the time to do. This one had some collage underneath first.
George says hello.
George
George
Caceres, fancy him popping in.
Little smiley face.
He has so much to do. What's he doing watching me? So here's one that was a little darker. You can kind of see the progression, you know, from page to page of where I might have been in my mood, or I was trying out a new stencil. Love it. Here I was all about the gold. This was one of the last ones I did in this journal. I actually don't think this one is finished. This one looks like it needs a few more layers. And now I'm on this one. And this is burlap. Burlap doesn't shrink as much as the canvas does, so I'm not so worried about it. And today I'm going to do something a little different. I am not going to use stencils. And because I think that we get in this mindset that we need all of this stuff, right? This is a kitchen sink craft, and usually what that means is that we all get a little hoardery and start collecting things to do this with. But I just want to remind you, you don't need specialized equipment. I am going to be using bits out of my stash. One thing we're going to be talking about today during the product reveal, well, we don't have anything to reveal, so we're asking a question instead, which is, you know, what's missing in the store. We'd love you to show up and have that conversation with us during our live. And so I'm using some things here today that some I carry and some I don't. If you see something you like, let me know, and I'll let you know if it's something that I have in the shop. And if not, I'll note that, and we'll use it later. But the idea is that you can do this by grabbing whatever you have. And so, and you don't have to have fancy stencils or even fancy books. This is, you know, a fancy book, but you don't need that. So what I'm starting with today is Liquitex flexible molding paste. And I love texture paste. Texture pastes are thick. They go down like frosting. There are all sorts of brands out there of texture pastes. You know, people have their favorites. I am a little bit non-committal. I like certain ones, but I like almost all texture paste, so I haven't found one yet that I'm like, ugh, I don't like that. The only reason I might not like a texture paste is if it bubbles too much when it dries or takes too long to dry. That doesn't work for me. But I am a fan of Liquitex and Golden, so you'll see me using those a lot. And I do sell those in the store for the most part. Not all of them. This is the professional line, so this is a little more expensive, and I can tell you it has a very strong scent. Feeling a little gassed out here. But Liquitex and Goldens tend not to bubble when you dry them. They're pretty good that way.
Is that in stock?
This is not in stock. This is one of the ones that's not. I carry a couple of the professional brand stuff, but not all of it. So the question here, I'll pose the question. If you like it, I'll bring in more. It's a little more expensive, but it is a fine art supply, so it's going to, if you take care of it, it'll last, and you should get really, really good results with it, because that's what you get when you pay a premium for these brands. For Liquitex and Goldens, they are premium art brands, and they've been they're well regarded and very, very consistent and predictable. This is my personal color that I created. I called it Sunflower Yellow, and I made it with a light molding paste. It's blended with a light molding paste, and
pigments. Right?
And yeah, so the pigment combination I call Sunflower, and the light molding paste has a sort of a frosting feel, so it's not particularly glossy. It's got this matte effect. You can see that the other paste, I put it on so thick, it's not dry yet. So this one's going to be one of those ones that just takes forever to dry, because I am layering it on. But again, you can see I've got some texture going on, but I'm not using stencils. I'm just slapping it down. And what happens is it gets a little skin on it, and you can choose to keep working on it while it's wet underneath but dry on the outside. But what might happen is that you end up with something, I don't know if you can see that, where the skin moves around on top of the liquid paint underneath it. Which, you know, normally I hate that, but because it kind of looks like saggy skin or pruny skin, like when you get out of the bath. You might do that on purpose. And then, you know, if you really want to test the bubble on a medium, you just point your heat gun at it until it bubbles. So almost all of them will bubble if you leave the heat gun on it long enough. Let me think about what I want to do next. Here's one that I do not carry. But I found it in an art store in New York, and was interested. I'd never seen this brand before. It's just a medium body, but it's a matte flow acrylic. So actually, usually when they use the word flow, they intend it to be fairly fluid, and it is. Just look how fluid that is. So, you know, that's, but it's not fluid in the way that, well, let's see, if this is a soft body acrylic, this is considered a flow, is it? Oh. I just got all of these in stock. They're not in the system yet, but I do have them. They're in a box in the studio waiting to be cataloged. But so these, you know, these are flowier in terms that they're drippy, but they don't flow in terms of putting them down and having them flow around your paint. So they're not liquid that way, but they are soft and squishable. Hopefully you can see that. So those I do have in stock, and I also have a fair number of the golden fluid acrylics, little 1 ounce bottles. This is Jane Davenport's acrylic, which is medium body, and you can see it's not. One thing you can do if you really want to know is put out a splodge like this and see what happens. And like a flow should relax a little bit. It's not going to flow and move around your work like a fluid, but it will. It should soften. Whereas heavy body or texture paste is going to stay exactly the way you put it down on your page. So whatever you do with it, that's what it's gonna be. So I'm just doing a deep scrape. I'm yanking it across and seeing what I pick up. So I'm getting some texture obviously from the fact that this is on burlap, so that's creating a texture in itself right there. I'm going to go a little dramatically different for a second. I just grabbed my sidekick here. My sidekick is a little journal that I keep on the side to clean my brush off of or use as a palette, which is what I'm using it right now. And I'm going to layer up a brayer with this color. This is an Artist Loft color. Which means I probably picked it up at Michael's or Joann's on one of my trips. So
you don't have that?
I don't have this. You know, I'll be honest, with Artist Loft, I'm not entirely sure I can bring it in. I can look. If you're like, I need that color, I can look and see. It's kind of nice because it's got a little pearlescent. And, you know, hopefully what you saw there is what the brayer does is sort of create this veil of color on top of everything, which is fun. And today I'm just working with acrylics. I'm not going to work with water soluble supplies today because I really want them to dry and become the texture. So I don't want to put anything down that will dissolve. This next one that I'm going to use, I think this one is a Crackle Paste. This is Ranger's Crackle Paste. Their bottles, their jars don't seal so well, to be honest. Some of this is dried up. So I need a palette knife, which I have. Nope, I'm gonna say I know I have one. I've been remodeling. I've been rearranging, and that means that things are ending up places that I forget where they are. So let's see how this, I'm pretty much a stickler for trying to keep my lids on, so the fact that this is drying is super bummer. All right, so this is Crackle Paste. So the goal is to put it down thick enough so that when it dries, it crackles, but thin enough too, because it's like there's a sweet spot. Because sometimes with a crackle, what you want is to have it crackle and show what's underneath it. But this has really stiffened up in the jar. So you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and put it all down because otherwise it's just gonna go bad in this jar. And this is more like shortening than frosting.
Shortening.
Shortening. Do you remember shortening? Did I just date myself? I don't know if
Is that
kids
like
these
Crisco?
days. Yeah, Crisco's a shortening. Yep. A lot of the old-fashioned cake decorating techniques you did with shortening mixed with sugar. So it was literally just grease, greasy sugar. Now I might not get the effect on this until much later, just because and I do have a lot of water-soluble mediums sitting on my tools, so you're gonna see some of my stuff get contaminated by that. And if you've watched me at all, you know I don't care about that. That does not bother me, but if it bothers you, then for sure wash your tools in between your sessions, because that's what that is. Cross-contamination. All right, let's see if we can get a crackle going. It has to be pretty bone dry to get the crack. And honestly, if you really want to do it right, just let it dry on its own, but I wonder, can you see this on the page? Yeah, right there. That's nice and dry, and you can see the crack forming in front of your eyes. Yep, see, got a nice crispy patch there. You see what's happening here? Look at that. It's like almost instant. Some of the Crackle Paste don't crackle so nicely, which is always disappointing, because that's what you want. You want to see it split. It's a little mesmerizing, I'll admit. See that skin that was on the top of that yellow is peeled up in some places. I'm not a fan of that. That's one of the reasons I don't like moving it around. I don't like fluttery bits. It's funny because I love grungy bits, I love chunky bits, I love, you know, obviously I love making messes, but I don't like bits hanging off my pieces. Off the edges, it's not so bad. Like that doesn't bother me. But coming off the actual page, I don't know why. Maybe because I'm one of those people who will pick at things, you know, and so it's anxiety producing to see it hanging out there. It's hard not to want to peel it off. All right. Hopefully that gave you an idea of what that does. That's fun. I'm going to come in with some more of this fluid. A lot more, looks like. Splutch. Splutch. Squish. And so this is one way to highlight that crackle, is to come in with something a little liquid and scrape it down over it, and it will, you know, squish into those cracks that we just created. Maybe. And don't worry, I am just at the beginning of my layering at this point, so there's going to be a lot more that goes down on this. Right now what I'm doing is looking for places that I haven't gotten any mediums, you know, of the base layer, of the substrate is another way to think of it, of your canvas. So these are all words you might hear if you start watching various artists. They're gonna call it various things. Your page, your spread, your journal spread. Ooh, this one's chunky. It's got literally throwing off chunks like concrete. Not the day to wear black. Oh well. Here's another one of that Jane Davenport set I opened a few weeks ago. I really liked this color set. It's very sort of sweet and not neutral because it's definitely a palette, but sort of, you know, I don't know, just comforting. I do love this peachy tone right here. You know, she has this whole thing about mermaids, so a lot of her colors are meant to be sort of flowy, calming tones. So her sets are kind of fun to buy. She has great names for her colors too. Let's see if it actually says on here. Nope, which is a shame because
Doesn't have a color name?
it doesn't. Isn't that a bummer?
Very strange. Maybe on the outside.
Yeah, maybe on the actual package. These are not packaged for individual sale.
I'm gonna go grab it on.
I don't know. Yeah, there should be one in there, because this is a very pretty, calm tone. So again, even though all I'm doing is putting down texture paste, my goal is to get, you know, my usual layers of 6 to 20 in any given spot, which, you know, that's not literal. Like, I do like the layers to poke through, so it's more that you could have up to 6 to 10 layers, 20 layers on any given spot, but there'll also be places where you'll be able to see down through the you know, through to the paper or through to the burlap.
The package doesn't even include
What?
the colors.
That's crazy, because she spends a lot of time thinking about the colors.
I know. It's not
It's a big deal for her, so
so strange.
the fact that she doesn't have them on the package is crazy.
The cheap package.
They had huge issues with that particular package release, with the tubes popping open and all sorts of stuff, so I wonder if, yeah, maybe not as thought out as the stuff that she's produced since then.
Nothing on the back of it?
No, not unless I'm missing it.
Okay.
The word paint in 6 different languages, but
So it looks like the tubes
Yeah.
are actually all the same, and when you fill it with paint, you see the colors. So
yeah, so that is the color.
So they didn't want to print on the tube the name of the paint. Unless it's like an individual sticker to identify it.
Sometimes
but they
it
could put it on the package though.
it takes a marketing perspective to understand these things sometimes. All right, so maybe what hopefully you can see is now some of these textures that I've created just by, you know, scraping stuff onto the page are now interacting with each other, and. 'Cause, 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 Oops. I'm hoping that the camera does the color palette justice, because I often find that I have to brighten my photographs in order for you to really see the picture, the colors the way I see them in real life.
It's looking really great.
What?
It's looking great.
Okay. You can see it?
So for nail polish on your watch. Watch lights up.
Oh yeah, my unicorn. My emoji unicorn. It took me forever to realize that when you use the emoji in text messaging, that you can actually make it move around and mimic your talking. I thought that was genius when I figured it out. Okay, so this, I wanted to show you, I brought this out very specifically because this jar is done. And so I just wanted to show you one way to like get the last little bits out if you're one of those people who's like, I know there's still paint in there. Because you're not wrong, there's definitely still paint in there. So I just cut the tube end off, and actually there's a lot of paint in there, so you know, be mindful of when you do this, because now I'm, you know, got a lot of this pink to use up, which isn't a bad thing. I love this pink, and I intend for it to, you know, sink into the piece. So I'm putting it down liberally, knowing that I'm going to add more and more layers. So look, I can really get in there and scrape. If I was using a brush, I would get every little drop. But you can really get in there and get those bits that you have a hard time squeezing. This is one reason that I like paints that come in aluminum, is because you can really squeeze it out. It's much harder with these plastic tubes. So that was that piece, but you can see I've got quite a bit of paint there. So one thing I can do is I can use it, or I can scrape it down a little bit, and then I can take, if I don't mind getting it on my hands, which I don't, I can take one of these kind of clips, a wide clip, a bowl clip, and I just clip it. And now I've got a little paint pot that I can use. And it won't last forever because that's not particularly water or, you know, airtight, but it means I can use it a little more, you know, get that last little bit for longer, more access to it. All right, so now I've punched you in the eye with that color. Let's keep going. Oh my gosh, it's already been half an hour. So again, you could be doing this with your kids' poster paints into an old encyclopedia that you have lying around. Do the one that has all the geography from 20 years ago, because that's out of date. And or all the ones on, you know, activism, because that's out of date. You know, you can just throw down whatever, really. It's really just about, you know, doing what feels fun. And like, I'm obviously not very attached to what's going on. I'm going to keep covering it until I get what I want. I'm not worried. I know this paint is not long for this world, so I'm not worried about getting paint in it and on it. This is the Crackle Paint, the one that was a little dry, and so I'm really just trying to get as much of it out as possible. Some of it is just too chunky though, believe it, even for me. So I'm not the least bit worried about the fact that I'm getting paint in there. And the whole point with this is I'm trying to create layers on top of layers, and then with little moments where you might see through and see those colors underneath. I have a piece that I was playing with that I actually sanded down, but some of these chunky bits, when you come into sanding them down, you get smooth coverage on the top, and then you have these little canyons that you look down into with some color and stuff. I don't know. Kendall, do you mind handing me that panel that's right there? I feel like now that I've mentioned it, I should actually show people what I'm talking about.
Than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's just a panel.
Oh,
Yeah, so this is basically the same technique, but I've sanded it. And I don't know if you can see how some of those ridges, I'm still layering color on this one and then sanding it down and layering color and sanding it down. You can see the crackle, but this is all basically smooth. But it also still has a lot of texture in it, and you can see where some of these chunkier bits created, viewpoints down into the color. So, that's basically what I'm trying, or not trying, I should say. That is the effect that's happening here because of what I'm doing. So since I'm just playing, it's not like, I don't want it to sound like I'm sitting here trying for a certain effect. I am playing around and seeing what happens. So that was, again, more Crackle Paste. So as it dries, it's gonna do that crackly thing. Some of it got picked up, some of the pigment that wasn't dry on my page, and so it's got a tint to it. A tint is what happens when you add white to a color. A tone is what happens when you add black. Hue is the color you start with. Now look at that. That's just pulling right up. So this one is going to be crumblier until, if I sand it, I'd fix that with sanding if I were going to do it. I'm not sure I will with this. I don't know how hardy this page will end up feeling, and sanding is rough on a piece. Oh, I wonder if you guys can see this. I hope you guys can see this. The crackle. Use what you have. Or come in here and buy all the lovely craft supplies that I have curated for you guys. But the whole point, really, the bottom line is, I really want you to have this as a tool for mental health as much as anything. For you to do your crafting and get your craft on. And so I don't want this to seem out of reach just because I sell affordable to expensive craft supplies. So yeah, that's it for now. Thank you for joining me today.
Question?
You have a question?
No, 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. So 1 o'clock, I don't have a box today, but we're going to walk around the store, and I would really love you to show back up and bring your questions and bring your suggestions for supplies that maybe you think I should carry, or that you thought I carried and realized I didn't, that sort of thing. Designers that you're aware of, new designers that you want me to bring in, any holes that you think I have in the shop. So that's at 1. And just a reminder, I am going on vacation tomorrow, so I'll be out of town for a week, but the store will be open again on the 14th. So you can always, if you're a little worried about in-person shopping, you can always do online and choose curbside. And I also ship, so a couple of options for you. Anyway, you can also come in today. I'll be here till 5. All right, everyone, have fun. See you soon.